Hello, I'm Rachel, and if you're listening, you probably already knew that. You probably knew that this is a podcast where I talk about 24 books that were suggested to me by people across my social media sites, sometimes with a guest, sometimes with the person who suggested the book. Around the 28th, I'll be talking about the next book on my list, Leviathan Wake by James Corey. Today's fortnightly suggestion came from two different people, Dawn and Allie on Facebook. Happy birthday to Dawn, who shares my birthday on July 10th. And happy birthday, Allie. I don't know when your birthday is, but it's gotta be sometime, right? Lirael by Garth was the actual suggestion, but I've read that, so I went with the sequel, which has been on my personal reading list for, well, since about halfway through the first one, to be honest. Thanks for the opportunity, friends. So, without further ado. Deep within a dream, Rachael felt someone stroking her forehead. To understand the sequel, there are a few things you need to know about the original. Lirael, the main character, is the daughter of the Aporson, who is the necromancer from a line of necromancers. Aporson is the title, and people refer to him as that, much like you might refer to someone as just doctor. Aporson uses magic that he channels through bells to keep the dead behind the gates of death, which has a river running through them. Lirael receives the bells and a sword imbued with magic, and in response, she leaves her all-girls boarding school to go search for him. Lirael believes he is probably stuck behind one of the gates in the realm of death, and that these items were sent to her that she might help free him. Garth does an excellent job of mixing magic with an almost diesel punk setting, as opposed to steampunk, which is Victorian machinery. We get sort of a World War II era with more gears slapped on. We have cars, but also aircrafts that are powered by whistling specific spells, which sums up the southern New Kingdom versus the northern Old Kingdom pretty well. She goes to her father's house where she picks up a demon shaped like a cat, and she traverses caverns where she finds a prince who's been a shiphead for a few years. And it is worth saying that the monarchs of the Old Kingdom are gone, like there's no ruling family at this point in the series. Eventually, it culminates in a fight between her and the creature Caragor, who is related in a way to the old ruling family, and the other girls at her school in a scene that had me in tears. When I read it, I was on a road trip with my then boyfriend and his parents, and I was like sobbing in the backseat of their car. So that's the best description I can give without giving too much away. That book was a solid 10 out of 10 Rachels. Lirael, whose name, much like Lirael, I can't figure out how to pronounce, which is dumb because we share the same spelling for the last half of our names. We join her on her 14th birthday when she is hoping to gain the sight that all seers called the Clare genetically obtain. They are like a cloister of nuns if those nuns were like 1,000 copies of the Oracle of Delphi. They are self-contained within a glacier in the far north of this continent that Garth has created for the story. In contrast, Lirael spent a great part of her life in the south, whereas Lirael has never left the safety of this society living in northern ice. They aren't cut out from the world, though. They get lots of travelers who come through. And Nyx wastes absolutely no time in letting you know that even though only women live and operate here, they're definitely not celibate. They can also travel outside the ice by means of those magic planes I mentioned earlier. We begin the story learning all of this as Lirael talks about the warmth she feels as she sleeps, the only thing she can remember of her mother, who is dead. Nobody seems to have any idea who her father is or why she hasn't yet received her ability to see into the future. While thinking about how sad she is about the path of her life thus far, she comes to the conclusion that she just wants to die. Not even 100 pages in, and our heroine is about to abandon us. At the age of 14, though, if I remember correctly, it seems like no matter what happened, be it tripping in the hallway at school, playing a wrong note in orchestra, getting an answer incorrect in class, everything seemed to be the catalyst for the end of the fucking world. And when you're stuck in a place where everyone can do something except for you, and you can't join in until you can do something you have absolutely no control over, yeah, that sucks. It's like being surrounded by Rudolphs and you're the one normal reindeer. Luckily, the story is not ended so quickly. She goes to an appropriate jump point only to be interrupted by guests flying in to talk to some of the head seers. A couple of familiar faces. We see the prince made of wood who has returned to the throne, and Sabriel, who is the queen now. Good for her living this very specific dream. We learned that magic nonsense is, of course, afoot, which we sort of got from the prologue, where a guy is turning magic users into slaves to raise his master from some kind of great beyond. I really appreciate Garth Nix. It seems like there are just other bigger things he could be focusing on, and he chooses teenage girls in all-girls environments as the focal points. J.R.R. Tolkien, you had no excuse, dude. Absolutely no excuse. The Headseers find Lirael hiding in a snowdrift, and they ask, hey, what are you doing here? And like any 14-year-old asked a question, she bursts into tears. Sometimes it just be like that. Two of the seers let her know that sometimes the power just comes late, and she can have an adult job in their society to take her mind off of it. You know, make her feel like part of the team. Lirael decides she wants to work in the library. This child, relatable. So she gets the new position, and one day when everyone else is called away, she starts wandering where she shouldn't. This library is massive, and she receives a wristband covered in 7 gems that can unlock certain doors. Nyx has a thing for the number 7. 7 gems, 7 gates in death, 7 bells that keep the dead down. She toys around with it and gets it to unlock a door meant for much higher level librarians. And it was not until just now that I was reminded of the show The Librarians. Does anybody remember this? The only show to successfully return to a Monster of the Week format. Anyways, she lets out a creature that reminded me of the alien bounty hunter The Stalk from the comic Saga. Think Spider-Woman, but both of those words are literal. Lirael barely gets out alive and traps it again, but not for long. The way this book is written does a really great job of encapsulating, let's say, the experience of a 14-year-old, because many pages are dedicated to her worrying about a thing, an event, a person, and then she meets the thing in her way and she conquers it. She defeats the spider mantis thing in like 2 or 3 pages. As a person who is frequently anxious, this book speaks to me because I tend to spend more time worrying about the outcome than facing the problem. The abortion Sabriel's son also shows up, but he's south of the border between the old and the new kingdom when we first meet him, and also he's not in the book title, so thanks for your participation, my man. I loved this book. Maybe slightly less than its predecessor, but I think that's because walking into the world fresh was such a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and now that I'm walking around in it, it seems a little bit more normal. That being said, I have to give this book 10 out of 10 Rachels. There's just something about non-sexualized young women honing their power through the help of a magic animal friend and learning to kick ass through the power of friendship that gets me every time. If you haven't read the series and are looking for a fresh take on magic, or are like me looking for a female protagonist, I would absolutely hand you these books. If you've already read these and are looking for something similar, I would suggest Tamora Pierce's series, starting with the Song of the Lioness Quartet, which involves a girl swapping places with her brother so she can learn how to be a knight. Thanks for joining me this week. I hope you find what makes you powerful in 2019. Thanks for listening, and Happy New Year! Reading is pretty much the only thing keeping me focused on the fact that I'm not at San Diego Comic-Con this weekend. If I ever got the chance, I would probably dress up as Sabriel one of the days. That's one of my dream costumes. Nobody would know who the hell I am, but it would be absolutely sick.